So let's go back to the beginning and talk about some of the layouts of this presentation. The first thing you'll notice is that we have a title slide, and the reason we know it's a title slide because if we go to layout, you'll see that it's a title slide. The next slide layout is title and content, and then immediately after that we have a comparison. The next thing we'll do is go to the next slide, and you'll see a little star underneath the number for the slide, and that's going to indicate that there's either going to be a transition to this slide or an animation on the slide. If you want to know if there's an animation, you would go up to Animations, and then activate the animation pane. In this case, it was already selected, so I can toggle between showing it and not showing it. If we go to the next slide, we will see the animation that includes a curved line, and also animation that includes a straight line. And in this case, our animation pane tells us that the FDIC logo is going to start in this position, and then from there is going to end up in this position. The white box covering it, you'll notice that it's been selected based on the change in color for this icon. And if we select that white box, we'll notice that it's just a white box that's covering up that logo. On the animation pane, you'll see different information here. You notice that this starts on a click, or when we go to advance a slide. This animation is going to last 2 seconds. And there is no delay between when we click the mouse and when that animation starts. This is kind of an outline of when we expect to have all those animations occur. In this case, you could see there's a difference between the end of this animation and the one after it. And if we activate that animation, we'll see that there's a 3-second delay between the end of this one and the following one. If we decide that we want to preview this animation, we can. Whichever one we have selected, if we hit play from, it's going to show the process of the animation for this particular slide from that point. You'll also notice that each of these are labeled and easy to identify. Normally when you go to insert something, so for example, if I were going to insert an object here, I can go to a shape. The default in this case comes up for me as a blue box. And if I added an animation to it by going to the animation pane, maybe I wanted to do a wheel animation, you'll notice that it shows up as some generic rectangle too. And so maybe we want to rename that so we know exactly what it's identifying. Here though, it isn't easy to see necessarily how we might rename it. We can try to double click. And all that does is give us the different animation options, right? So there are additional options within this pop-up window that don't necessarily appear on the ribbon at the top of PowerPoint. And so we have to figure out a way to rename this thing. And so one way would be to go up to the Home tab. If we want to go to Edit, and we'll see the Select option. And then we can highlight Selection Pane. And we'll get another optional box that shows up here. And it has all of the selections that appear on this particular slide. So for example, we have the SEC logo, which is this right here, and we know that it's selected based on our selection pane. This is going to be the white box that covers it up. This rectangle, you'll notice that it's listed at the top of the selection pane, and the reason for that is that it's going to cover everything under it. Right? It sits on top or is moved to the front of the slide. This white box appears below the FDIC logo, which means it's going to be toward the back of the slide, and if I move it here, it's going to show up behind the FDIC logo. And so if you ever need to adjust the position of these particular items, you can. For example, I can move the white box to go in front of the FDIC logo, where it would then cover it up. Another way to do that is to go to Arrange, and we can either bring forward or send backward. And we'll notice that bring forward moves it up 1 position, and send backward moves it back 1 position. And so we can affect it there. This is also a place where we can insert a name for these individual objects. So I can double click on that and rename it. If I wanted to hide a particular object, I can click on this button to hide it as well. And so we can insert these different objects using our Insert tab on the ribbon, which might include a shape, a text box, an equation in some cases, or a video. And there's also some pre-built information in PowerPoint as well, including the date and time and a slide number.